what's going on? This is Tom from Team NWP, and pretty keen to show you off one of the jankiest, crappiest decks I've played in a long time, but it got us second place at locals, and it was a hell of a lot of fun. So, without further ado, we'll get into it, but quick introduction if you haven't heard of Team NWP. It stands for Namekian Witness Protection, because, you know, we gotta protect them Namekians from them freezer guys that try to kill them all and commit genocide, which isn't fun. But nonetheless, we're a competitive Dragon Ball Super team based in good old Australia. We're relatively new to this general space of being a competitive team, as well as, you know, diving into content creation and all that fancy shenanigans. So if you have any comments, suggestions, likes, dislikes, happy to hear it all. So without any further ado, we'll dive into it. So if anyone doesn't know what the leader does, you should, because it is very much taking over the meta. On the Unawakened side, he's stock standard. Just when he attacks, draw one card. The Awakened condition has two triggers. So you can either have a 2-cost Unison in play, in which case you flip over, draw one card, untap one, and you can take life till you're down to 6 life. Or if you're at 4 or less life, you can do, you know, the same old shenanigans, untap one, draw one. The backside is where it gets nice and fun. So same old attack, draw one. He's now got a permanent that says your opponent's leader cannot attack battle cards, which is good. I like it. I like it a lot. But the activate main is where it's all at for me. So pay 1 green. It's either you choose one of your opponent's Unison cards, remove a marker from it, or you can discard a green card and play 2 ghost tokens in rest mode. So I found I was, if I was awakening early, doing that turn 2, turn 3 was great, because essentially the deck, if you can't really tell, it's just token spam. It's just token dot deck. So moving on to the lineup, we did just a 4-4 split between Medicooler and Demigra. In one of our earlier deck profiles where I show off my Ginyu list that got me an invite to the Oceanics finals for online tournaments, I kind of explained my philosophy behind green Unisons, which is basically they have such a well-structured lineup. You know, turn 1, 2, and 3, you've got Demigra, which is a Unison you can't really get rid of outside of card effects, because if you attack into it, I can take life. And then Medicooler is just a powerhouse. Plays tokens with combo power, which is pretty darn broken, and then draws you 2 cards after discarding 1. And there's so much interaction with the drop area where you can pretty much just make that into a straight up +2 instead of just a +1. So it's fantastic. The only difference here is I did in that list play the Vegeta Unison. In this case, we're not playing that because room was a bit tight. But moving on from that, like, fundamentally, the idea of the deck is, you know, we're using the leader to create tokens, we're using Medicooler to play tokens, and we're using this old janky card from set 2 to play tokens. So if you have Gotenks in either your leader area or your battle area, you play 2 ghost tokens. So it's fun. You're playing tokens for days, and you go into town, so you don't really have to rely on playing much in the way of battle cards. So the deck was kind of just revolving around, okay, what can I do as far as maintaining, you know, both red and green energy? Because I need the green for Medicooler, I need the red for this janky crap. What can we do for that? And one quick disclosure is the list that I ran on Tuesday is slightly different to what this list is. This is just a bit more of a revised list. So the differences are between that and this is, instead of Gogeta, we ran Beerus and Champa that night, because that's just what I had on me. And we didn't run the 6-drop Mask Saiyan, and we didn't run my big boy Fu. I really wish I did, because that would have made my life easier, but we didn't, and I got to live with that. But nonetheless, the deck is pretty much just the same. So kind of moving on to our counter or extra card lineup, it's pretty stock standard for what we have now in terms of the meta we're at. 1 max power Kamehameha, because the card is just broken. I would run it at 2, but, you know, I find I only need to see it once. Once I see it once, I don't need it to see it again, because I can recycle it off the counter attack skill. We played 3 Cells, Earth Destroying Kamehameha. 2 Shocking Death Ball, and a stock standard for any green list, which is 4 Dormant Potential. So, not really much to explain here. A lot of it is just very much hand control, board control, and just being able to capitalize on that and just controlling the tempo of the game with Dormant Potential. Not really going to spend too much time explaining what these cards do because they're just there as utilities to support what the deck does. So not much explanation. For the super combos, we ran 4 Paragus. I didn't want to run the Napa super combo because I'd rather be able to draw cards and see cards to be able to, maximize on what I can do, as opposed to, just focusing on arrivals. So that's why we played Raditz, to be able to enable some arrival plays. So, and we also needed to bump up our multicolor count a bit, so I could be able to make effective use of Broly. Broly being that check land where he comes into your energy and active if you already have a red-green already in there. So it was just mostly there to bump up the count so I can see red-green when I needed to see it. Moving on to the other utilities outside of, this card, which is, the core of the deck. This card's the real MVP, but we ran 3 Roshi. Roshi's just, a lot of people say that, Dormant Potential needs to be banned. I think it's this card that needs to be banned because Dormant's fine if you get it off, once, twice, maybe 3 times in a game. You're still not negating an attack, so your opponent can push for damage. Being able to recycle that so you can do it, 5, 6, 7 times in a game is just degenerate. I am calling myself degenerate there because I've been doing that since these cards dropped in set 10. But, is what it is. But I reckon this is the true card that should probably get a hit. But it's tap 1 green, add an extra card from your drop area back to your hand. So, we're pitching that off this to draw 2 cards. We're pitching that off this to play tokens. Just so many easy ways to get it into the drop area to be able to make effective use of it. Not to mention, we pitch it off Dormant Potential. Now, moving on to my spicy tech of set 11 is both Speedy Entrance Chilai and my boy Ogma. So they both pretty much do the exact same thing. If you KO one of your opponent's battle cards and there isn't already one in play, so 1 Chilai or 1 Ogma respectively, you play it for free, and they're both blockers. So one thing I love to be able to do is always be able to follow up a Dormant with a block. Now, if I'm playing these off the Dormant KOing something, I can't block in that same attack because they're not on the field when the card declares the attack. But, if I'm in a situation, for example, where I'm low on life, maybe, 2 or 3 life, and I've gone with Dormant and I might be tapped out, I don't want to pay Sparking with that to be able to protect myself because that's just putting me in more danger. So being able to follow that up with a block for free when I play that during my opponent's turn, it's very strong. And I think people probably shouldn't sleep on these cards. They've come up in so much handy. I find the 2-2 split is fine. When I played Gotenks on the Oceanics TO finals, I played just the 2 Ogma because the Gotenks list is pretty darn tight. And yeah, it put in so much work. So good card. Don't sleep on it. And then moving on to Super Ghost Kamikaze Attack. And it's such a bad card, but it's so good. But it's bad because, during your opponent's turn, it's an extra card that's completely dead in hand. You got nothing you can do with it. But it's pay 2, play 2 tokens with both 15k each. And just the amount that you can accumulate between this, Metacooler, and your leader is just stupid. It's just plain stupid. So one of the games, which was game 3 for me of the night, we were going up against Blue Baby with, just a shit ton of counters. And Baby did not have enough counters. Not enough negates to counteract all the tokens. I think in count by turn 5, we'd accumulated maybe 11 tokens on field. So he was just a bit scared going into his last turn, and we got the game just by sheer pressure of how many tokens we played. It was just a load of fun, and just the fact that Baby didn't have enough counters was just hilarious. So moving on, to be able to push for damage, I opted for 3 Furthering Destruction Champa. It's just, I run, maybe 1 or 2 in almost every deck I can, because being able to close out a game when your opponent's at 2 life, you swing for single strike, you combo a Champa. I mean, nowadays most players will be able to see that coming, but they're always going to have to weigh the risk. If you have a double strike on field, we'll negate let the single strike go through and negate the double and those kind of plays. But it's so great. No real explanation needed. And then I briefly touched on these before, just having the ratios of 3, 3, and 4. So 3 of the Raditz, 3 of the Gogeta, 4 of the Broly's, just to keep my red-green count, high enough so that I see it when I need to see it. So we charge 1 Raditz or 1 Gogeta and then just aim to charge the Broly's the rest of the game. That's the plan. But, the Beerus and Champa that I did play still did come in handy for being able to, pop something on the same attack where I played Dormant. So if my opponent was swinging in with like a 20k or less, with it being Beerus and Champa, or in this case a 4 cost or less, being able to in that same interaction just KO the card and then get a body on board, it's a good interaction because you're shutting down that attack and then you're only leaving your opponent with that one more attack. And again, no more explanation really needed, but for our counterplay of the deck, we ran 4 of the Freezer, and just fantastic. So it's kind of where the fundamentals ideas came for being able to play Cheelai and Ogma, because there's just so many things in green right now that KO. This KOs, this KOs, this KOs. It's not strictly game, but this KOs. This KOs, just so many things that KO. So I'm getting these effects off. Also a good way to bait out counters if you're wanting to bait those out. So these 2 cards, as far as the black cards, were last additions to the deck. They're cards that had I had the presence of mind to add in when I did, I would have ran them. Because in game 2 we went up against Red Gogeta, so the 6-drop that can't be KO'd, and in which case these do jack all. So being able to warp that with this is just, it's nice. It's free. And through the Dark Banisher, the reason why I'm so keen to add this into the list is kind of an idea that stemmed from back in the early days of Set 7. I built a very, very janky, much like this, Metacooler deck that was just spamming Metacoolers using the Harudegun leader and just making that fun. So it worked, and then the idea was, we get to turn 4, turn 5, we have a crap ton of Metacoolers on field, we drop this, and we just let our opponent cry as we just keep going in with a million swings. So that's the premise behind adding this in, accumulating a crap ton of tokens, and then turn 4, turn 5, depending on where you were at with the game, drop this and, just let your opponent cry. That's the premise. Of course, it's not always going to go that way, but because this deck does kind of hard lose to any green deck, because Dormant Potential is just going to kill every single token. But there's kind of ways to play around that. I'm not going to say it's going to work because this deck is janky as hell, but you get it. And for the last lucky card, for the secret rare slot of the deck, we ran the Green Ape. The one game I lost was against mono green Gotenks, and in all honesty, I probably lost because I just got to turn 6 and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna kind of just go for game, go for broke, and we dropped this turn 6 for the 5 energy, and yeah, didn't go well. Got hit with Dormant, he over-comboed the first attack, and he was still at 4 life, so it was just bad plays from me, and I'll wear that. But nonetheless, that is the deck. I've probably explained it pretty darn poorly, but take a screenshot, take some notes, whatever you will. Give it a try, because it is fun. It is just so much fun, and even if you lose, you're having fun. So that's it. Feel free to give us a like, share, comment, dislike. Plenty of dislikes for this because it's janky. I've said janky way too much, so dislike for that. But if you want to follow our shenanigans, feel free to give us a good old subscribe. Peace.